Property Mythbusters. My name's Debra Beck-Mewing from the Property Frontline.
Hi, I'm Ken from Avvora Finance.
And I'm John Gilmovich from Real Property Manager. Thanks for joining us again. We continue on today with our series on the effects on the property market of the COVID-19 situation. And we're going to run you through what's happening in the lending space, the rental property market, and of course the sales market. So Ken, I'll get you to let us know in the last fortnight since we last did a live, what's happened in the lending and finance space.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, it seems like the property market seems to be coming back alive. There's signs of strong demand. Being out in the open homes over the last 2 weeks as well, we've seen quite a few interested buyers out and about inspecting property with open homes now reopened. Lenders are finding that they're seeing an influx in the amount of approvals that they're getting. One of the smaller lenders is seeing a 300% increase in the amount of pre-approvals applications. And some of the majors as well are seeing their service levels increase due to the demand of the number of applications. I guess this is also supported by Ray Morgan's data, where they've stated that the Australian consumer confidence, this was published 2 days ago, has risen up to 92.7%. There's a slight increase there. So that, I guess, there is a lot of interested buyers out in the property market. There's healthy demand for the home loans, not just the refinances, which was primarily, I think, top of mind for a lot of people when isolation and restrictions were in place, looking at ways to save and things like that. But now,
can I interrupt?
Yeah, sure.
Do you know if so you said there's an increase in loan requests, but
Yep.
Do you know if there's more investors or when there's more home loans?
At the moment, it still does seem to be primarily owner occupiers. I think there are still investors and they are starting to come on board. I was actually talking to one last weekend. He's looking at moving some things around logistics to be able to then make a purchase. So they still are out there. And what was interesting as well was the buyers that are coming into the market haven't been in the market previously, which was something that the real estate agent was mentioning to me. So this is actually brand new buyers entering the market as opposed to old buyers who have been looking for the last 6-9 months and things like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It could just be the way that things are playing out. It's enticing a certain type of buyer to come out to look for a bargain and look at saving and entering the market. So, I mean, in terms of the home loan applications, there is definitely signs showing that there is demand for home loans, whether they be purchases or refinances, which is an interesting thing.
Okay.
So, what's happening in the rental space, John? Out of curiosity.
Plenty.
Yeah.
So
do you want to share?
Look, besides landlords grappling with all the new COVID-19 regulations and negotiations and the lot of tenants who have obviously been affected, and in particular, renters are generally a younger demographic, the 25s to 35s, and a lot of them are in hospitality industry, of course, education, and of course, very affected through cuts in their salaries, especially IT industry as well has been pretty hard hit, and that has meant a bit of an exodus for them to basically go back home with mum and dad and save money. And that's channeling through now into the rental market as one of the cause and effects of what has been happening in the last couple of months, which is a general decline in the rental values and an oversupply of rental property versus the demand. Of course, the borders are closed. Our borders and international borders are closed. So this is has been highly impact the short-term market as well as the long-term market, and of course the student and rooming accommodation market. So I came across an interesting article on the weekend, which kind of sums it up pretty well. Let's have a look at what's happening in our big cities. So this article that appeared over the last week pretty much shows you a bit of a summary there of what is at the moment a general 10% decline in the rental prices. And that's across some pretty blue chip areas such as Pyrmont and Potts Point, Darlington, and of course Bondi Junction. And these are all, I guess, high density areas, areas that generally have a lot of apartments in them. And the hardest hit properties have been generally the apartment market, the strata apartment market, where we are in high supply and much lower demand than we were a year ago. But the hardest hit market in Sydney is the CBD, and we're heading for a 14% vacancy rate of mainly apartments, which is the main offering in the CBD. And so the listings, the real estate listings are up very high numbers, and rents are falling for those apartments. And you can see there some examples of last year's prices versus this year. And there's some significant drops going on. So about 29,000 properties vacant at the end of April. That's a phenomenal, unprecedented number. About this time last year, we were hovering around 19,000. So we've got 10,000, and this is just the Sydney Metro. We've got 10,000 more listings available on the real estate portals. So as you can see there, 13.8% vacancy rate at the moment. So if you own a CBD property, it's hurting. It's hurting at the moment, and you need to think strategy around how you will find a tenant versus all the other investors that are in the marketplace right now. So here's a classic example. $700 per week, one bedroom apartment last year in Kent Street, now down to $595 and still unlet. Okay, so how lower can it go? Well, it can go lower. So Surrey Hills houses not immune as well. So you can see their example, $1,150 per week last year. And as of May this year, $950, a reduction of $200 per week, or $800 a month. I mean, that's a fair whack. That's a fair whack on someone's mortgage. And you've got to come up with that shortfall.
Or their income, their livable income.
Yeah. So what's added to the challenges around this is another big white elephant called Airbnb market. And as you can see here in the image, the listings that were thriving last year as far as the short-term rental market, this year is taking a really hard hit because the demand is just not there. And as you can see down the East Coast, some of the declines in including Sydney, 71% decline in short-term letting properties in Sydney alone. And that has meant basically, well, landlords thinking, well, what do we do? What do we do if we can't short-term them? Well, we have to put them back into the long-term market. So here's this whole supply, and there are some 150,000 properties that have come back from the short-term market into the long-term market and spread around our major cities, adding to that mass stock level which we've seen.
150,000?
Yeah.
Is that nationwide?
Nationwide, yeah.
Wow.
And of course, most of those are spread across, you know, the blue chip hotspots,
Beautiful areas,
coastal areas and beach areas, city, of course, the CBDs, where there's generally high demand, or has been high demand from tourism, corporate lettings, and that sort of temporary accommodation market, which is the short-term holiday lets. So very hard hit, and you know, the investors are not enjoying those returns they were a year ago, and have had to put them back into the permanent marketplace, competing with all the other stock levels, all the other stock that's available. So hence there's been a very sharp rise in the number of listings. And when that happens, obviously the inevitable happens. The rents start declining as it turns into a tenant's market. And the tenants now have the power to negotiate on their terms. And I've seen some incentives of up to 4 weeks free rent to entice tenants to sign a lease.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, will this improve? Yes, it will. However, it will weigh on the international borders being opened up and travel and tourism coming back. Because those properties, those short-term properties, will go back to the short-term marketplace and out of the long-term market pool. So it gives the permanent long-term lettings a better chance. And it's all demand-driven. So we just haven't got enough. We just haven't got enough tenants at the moment swallowing up all this stock, because some of them, number one, are staying where they are. They're not moving. It's a tough environment to move in right now.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of uncertainties. And number two, some of them have renegotiated already better rents where they are without having the need to move.
Yeah.
Right.
Or have already, got complete deferrals and waivers.
Yeah.
One thing I'll probably mention.
And some of those are between 3 and 6 months as well.
Yeah, one thing that I'll probably mention, like in terms of what's happening, with the rental market that you're mentioning and bringing out, John. I've noticed that lenders, for investors, I guess, who are looking out to get their home loans and things like that, lenders have tweaked their credit policies at the moment, so they're actually factoring less rent during the assessment process. So some lenders have moved, some have stayed put, but we'll see how that situation unfolds and whether there's stricter or further reductions in the amount that the rental income that they'll take for assessment. So I thought that was that kind of ties into everything that you've mentioned. Yeah,
that's a great point, and I guess it's not going to be assessed on 100% value of the rent. It's more likely to be around the 70%.
Yeah, it was 80, but yeah, things are getting tighter. So that could be something that affects someone who's wanting to refinance or purchase a property. The amount of income that's included to service the loan may be significantly reduced compared, and that could be the tipping point between an approval and not having the loan approved.
Okay, so that's the rental wrap up. Deborah, what's happening in the purchasing space?
Okay, so I will just, if I can get my...
I guess while Deborah's kind of looking to kind of set up or bring the information up. Okay. I was gonna have a chat. I guess with like any opportunities with uncertainty, like when there's a lot of uncertainty, there's always opportunities. But you know, care needs to be taken. So I'm just managing and handling those. You know, there's going to be some people who are unfortunate in terms of the situation and how it's played out, and there'll be others who kind of benefit from that. So we are working out what the opportunities are, and whether it suits you or not is probably an opportune time. When everything's steady, locked in, there's not much movement. You know, what more can you do? You know, chasing very small margins, but with something significant, you know, there's a lot bigger opportunities and bigger risk as well. But I guess that risk reward thing kind of plays out.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing that from the buying side. So these are the stats for the people who are searching online for properties in the residential space. So I'm not sure whether you can see it very clearly, but just want to make this a little bit bigger. But so the lowest point was on the 1st of April, and ever since then it's been continuing to go up. The amount of search activity, a minor dip just over the last week, but this is really playing out in auctions that we're seeing, where we've got lots of people crowding in at auctions. Mind you, not very much is going to auction, so maybe around about 200 properties, I think it was 250 in New South Wales last weekend, and Melbourne's probably around about a similar amount, and all the other states are much less. So that the good quality properties, as usual, are still holding up, and people are competing for them. But of course, two-speed market. So if you're looking for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom units, they're really going at a big discount. And we're seeing a similar kind of bump in commercial property, though at a much lower percentage rate. But still, the lowest point was the 1st of April, and now it's really come back, maybe starting to flatline a little bit. And now this really, we're not seeing that projected massive dip of the scary price point drops that were predicted in the market. And just over the past 2 weeks, it seems like there's a bit of a competition going on in the media to see who can get the biggest headline and predict the biggest price point drop. But I'm wondering how, or what kind of data these people are using to make their predictions, apart from the fact that we know that they're just sort of shrieking headlines. If they were using the JobKeeper numbers as a prediction for when we might see a cliff in September for where we'll see the real impacts of the COVID market. So we're expecting this changeover to impact 6 million people who were supposed to be on JobKeeper. But of course, on Friday, the federal government very bravely came out and honestly announced that they had made a slight error in their projections or calculations for how many people were actually on JobKeeper. And of course, instead of it being 6 million people being affected, it's only 3 million. While still a big number, if the headline shriekers were basing their data on the doubled amount, it's not going to be as big as an impact. But anyway, is there anything else anyone wants to mention at the moment?
No, so it seems that a lot will be is stemming on the unemployment rate is one to watch out for. as one of the indicators, you know, of that will obviously be tied into property, and it has always been the case. So affordability, lending, and the confidence to purchase, of course, will be tied in with the unemployment rate, and that's one to watch as well.
Yeah. Yes, it will be. Alrighty, so thanks very much for watching. If you would like to get in contact with us, please visit us at our independent sites. So John Gilmovich at Real Property Manager, Ken Q from avvora.com.au, or me at Property Frontline. That's it for now.